Update. I think my friend is sabotaging my relationships. Original post. For starters, I, 17 female, am very close with my brothers, 29 male will call Austin, best friend 40 male who will call Dean. I consider Dean as one of my best friends, and we bonded pretty quick after he moved in with my brother and I almost 2 years ago. Originally, when I first met Dean, I was dating a boy who ended up cheating on me 2 weeks after my birthday. To add to that, my mother's death anniversary is 2 weeks after my birthday. So needless to say, I was a complete wreck for a few months. Dean had been the one to encourage me to break up with my then boyfriend, and Dean told me I was much better off without him. In fairness, I'm grateful I listened to Dean, and he was 100% correct about the ex. A few months later, I had met another boy, 16 male we'll call Mick, who I connected with quickly, and when I had rambled to Dean and Austin about Mick, Dean had asked me what his full name was. At the time, I hadn't found it strange, so I had told him. A few days later, Mick approached me and asked if I really did know Dean, and why Dean had been so adamant on Mick not talking to me. I felt a mix of anger and confusion, but I remained friends with Mick and didn't bring him up to Dean anymore, nor mention why Dean had talked to him. A while later, Dean and Austin started going out to the movies once a week with their friends, and they invited me along. I met their friend who was closer to my age than the others, 21 male, we'll call him Matt, and Matt and I had bonded great. We instantly hit it off, and I did find myself getting a bit of a crush on him, but I wasn't going to act on it anyway. I enjoyed simply being Matt's friend and teasing him for simple and stupid things. Yesterday, Dean and Austin took me to the movies, and Matt and another friend of theirs was waiting for us. Dean teased me about being cutesy with Matt when we had our usual back and forth banter, and I denied it entirely. Throughout the whole night, Dean kept implying that I had a thing for Matt. While it was true, I still didn't need everyone knowing, and I didn't know how Dean even knew when I treated Matt the same as I treated Dean and Austin. When we got back home, I thanked Dean for bringing me along, and Dean had told me he pulled Matt aside and explained to him that me and Matt could never be a thing. He also added that if he found out Matt was trying to get with me later, both Dean and Austin would unalive him. I know Austin plays into the protective older brother persona, but I also know that Austin wouldn't care if I dated his friends, because they're people he approves of. Dean, however, I don't know why he would say this, has never been overprotective of me or anything until pretty much last night. So at this point, I'm more confused than ever. Do I confront Dean? Do I reach out to Matt and try and figure things out? I also feel like I can't really explain this to Austin, since I'm afraid he'll think I'm overthinking things. What do I do? Edit. I would like to add that Matt has never flirted with me in any shape or form. All of our conversations have been purely platonic, and I talk to Matt the same way I talk to Austin. I can understand where the confusion may have been coming from. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Isn't the weird part the 40-year-old man hanging out with children? Personally, I was kind of weirded out by it, but honestly, if Austin trusts him so much, I guess he can't be that bad. Even Jeffrey Dahmer had friends. He's not such a great person. And just because he hasn't hit on you yet, doesn't mean he's not wanting until you're 18. Not sure you're aware of this, but Dean wants to sleep with you. Bleh, I don't even want to entertain that thought. Fair enough. I'd humbly suggest that Dean seems to be displaying quite an unhealthy amount of involvement in the love life of a young woman. It's almost as if he is jealous, and that every boy you bring home he is trying to sabotage or suggest that you shouldn't be involved with them. Like he's hoping you eventually get around to thinking of him as a possible romantic partner, lol. Sorry, but no 40-year-old man should be interfering and playing around with your love life. It's gross how he keeps playing interference with people interested in you. I would not be surprised if he's waiting for you to become legal before making a move. He tells me a lot about his ex-fiancée he was with for 6 years. She's currently 23, and if I did my math correctly, those numbers make me want to reach out to her and ask what happened. I can tell you what happened. Dean was 34 years old and she was 17. She was really impressed with Dean because he was so much older, so much more experienced in life than other young men, or boys, her age. Then she got older and realized Dean wasn't actually such a great catch. She was somewhat tricked due to the substantial age discrepancy, and she realized she could do a lot better than Dean. Now for the first update. First off, I want to thank everyone for their comments. The past few days have been tiring, but I think I'm slowly getting some answers. To start, I talked with Mick thoroughly about what all Dean had said to him. I'd asked to see the texts, and Mick obliged. From what I saw, Dean had convinced him to stop talking to me because I was already busy enough. I work a part-time job and do backstage crew for theater. I'm not too overwhelmed for relationships/friendships. And that I was already talking to someone. Awkwardly, I told Mick the real story and everything that had happened. For the time being, I'm keeping Mick as just my friend, but I urged him to block Dean from every platform of social media. I haven't tried to reach out to Matt about if what Dean had said to him was true, but I did reach out to Dean's ex-fiancée, Britt, 23 female. I was a bit surprised she had gotten back to me, as I had assumed she didn't like me whenever she visited Dean. They're in contact still, only for the sake of their 4-year-old child they have together. We talked extensively about Dean, where she had met him, and whatever else I could think of. Unfortunately, Dean wasn't lying about when he met Britt. They'd met when she was 17. He'd taken her under his wing and began dating her when she was 18. He got her pregnant when she was around 20. When I talked to her about my own experiences about Dean, she had seemed confused in how I was so close to Dean. From what he told her, Dean had said that I never really wanted anything to do with him, and I was already out and running around with my friends whenever he came back home. Truthfully, Dean's always invited me to hang out with him and watch him play video games, with or without Austin. It was like that for months, so I don't know why he would have lied about my friendship with Dean. He talked me down from anxiety attacks and nights where all I wanted to do was cry. Britt seemed uneasy. She asked if Austin knew, to which I said yes. She asked me later if I wanted to stay with her for a few nights, with her gaining permission from Austin. I checked in with Austin before I agreed. I'm ashamed to admit that I was surprised Britt had been truthful about her contact with Austin, but he agreed. So that's where I am now. Britt hasn't been cold toward me at all, and we shared an awkward laugh over how Dean had told us both that neither one of us would like the other. I wish I had reached out to Britt sooner. She's made me realize that maybe I don't know Dean as well as I do. A comment in my previous post made a suggestion of bringing up a new boyfriend around Dean. I brought the fake boyfriend into most conversations I had with Austin and Dean, or just Dean. He always seemed a bit annoyed, bugging me for his name and all that. I had lied and told Dean that I was staying at the fake boyfriend's house while I stayed with Britt. The night before I left, he seemed restless, and he kept asking Austin if he had any beer left or sleep medicine, since he knew he wasn't going to sleep at all tonight. I don't know what to do. I want to tell Austin, and Britt had strongly urged me to, but I don't want to ruin Austin and Dean's friendship. They're insanely close, and they love each other dearly. I'm worried about what losing Dean will do to Austin. I don't want him to think he's alone in any way. I know he'll want to end Dean if he even thought that Dean was trying anything with me, and I obviously don't want Austin to get in trouble. I'm just so worried about Austin, I don't know what to do. I'll keep updating this thread. Where the heck are your parents? You never mentioned them in your posts. If my 17-year-old child was hanging out with a 40-year-old, I would have put a stop to it right away and called the police. He's a groomer, and you are his next victim. Please keep no contact with him. My mother passed away 5 years ago, and I have a strained relationship with my dad to where he doesn't want to live with me. You need to tell your brother. You've confirmed Dean is a groomer, and the most important thing is your safety. In a few days, I'll tell Austin. I can't do it right now. I need time to think about how to tell him, and to let Austin know I don't blame him for any of Dean's actions. Your brother knows Britt and the age difference. He should have protected you already from him. If he feels guilt, it is on him. It's possible Dean only got close to your brother to be close to you. That's what predators do. You have to tell your brother. Do it when Dean is not there. Maybe in the company of other friends who can keep him from trying to do anything to find Dean and hurt him. He deserves it, but your brother doesn't deserve to get in trouble. He'll need support. You do too. I know maybe it hasn't registered to you yet, but you're not safe with this man. This man can mess your whole life. He's possessive and an active danger to you. Stay away from him. Stay safe and find supportive friends to tell about him. I don't believe Dean used Austin. They've known each other for years. Well, I've only just met Dean last year. That, and I would hate to believe someone would do that to my brother. In a few days, when my head isn't all messed up, I want to tell Austin. Britt said she'll be there with me and keep Austin in check. She's known Austin as long as she's known Dean. Heck, even her kid calls Austin Uncle Austin. If anyone can keep Austin from doing something stupid, it'll be Britt. Now for the last update. Hey all, I want to thank all of the comments from the last 2 posts. Y'all have given me really solid advice, and I really appreciate it. I realize how stupid I've been the past few days, and even months of my friendship with Dean, and I feel like I owe you all an apology for not dropping him immediately. Britt and I took Austin out to a small corner cafe in our town not far from home. Britt and Austin did some casual catch-up and whatnot before I began telling Austin everything. I told Austin about how Dean had been putting himself into my relationships and how he had lied to me about so many different major things. What I would like to add from the past that I haven't mentioned in the previous 2 posts is how Dean would make so many comments and how I looked. Sometimes several in the same day. Closer we got, he got more touchy. He wouldn't touch me somewhere that made me uncomfortable. He would just poke my shoulder a lot to annoy me or ask for hugs. I never really thought anything of the gestures because Austin treated me the same, minus the hugs, as he isn't very affectionate. I've always just ignored comments and compliments about how I've looked, so I didn't really think about it. But it was always when Austin wasn't around. There was once where Dean had moved his hand to my hip when we were watching a movie, but it didn't escalate, thank God. I confessed everything to Austin and showed him my evidence. Britt backed me up, and while I wished Mick was present with me to show his evidence, my brother doesn't really like any of my friends, so I knew Mick wouldn't have been welcomed. Britt also revealed her true age when she had met Dean and later Austin as well. Austin looked crushed, then furious. I expected him to be mad, but not also hurt. Truthfully, I was terrified he was going to blame me for the attention, but he didn't. I know my brother better than anyone, so my overthinking was really stupid yet again. He asked me how long it had been going on for, and I told him it had started after I broke up with my ex who cheated on me. He wanted to know why I didn't tell him, and I told him I knew how much his friendship with Dean meant to him, so I wouldn't interfere with that. He got angry and said that he would have taken my safety over his friendship 100 times over. He apologized and seemed truly crushed. I still feel bad about ruining his friendship with Dean, but Austin had been insistent that he wouldn't miss Dean anytime soon, and I wasn't to blame for anything. I got to give my brother a real, genuine hug for the first time in months. I usually only get a real hug when it's our mother's death date anniversary or it's one of our birthdays. I went home with Austin that night, who instructed me to stay in my room until he told me it was alright to come back out. He figured that if I had gone to Britt's, Dean would have come crawling back to her when Austin kicked him out, and Austin wanted Dean nowhere near me. There was a lot of yelling, and Austin threw the phrase freaking pedophile a lot at Dean. Dean didn't yell at Austin, only calmly tried to talk him down, before Austin interrupted him and told him he had 20 minutes to get his stuff and get out of the house, before Austin would start beating the crap out of him. Austin came and collected me roughly 15 minutes later, and I spent a lot of the night by his side. We watched horror movies on the couch and made stupid jokes about the movies. Britt had called Austin, but it was only to let him know that Dean had turned up at her doorstep and he had made a right call. Dean had pleaded with Britt for him to stay with her, but she rejected and confessed that I had been in contact with her for a few days. She knew everything, and he wouldn't be allowed anywhere near her or his son ever again. She confessed that she didn't know where Dean was exactly, but the most probable story was that he was living in his car. So here we are. This all was a few days ago. I blocked Dean's number, and Austin did the same. Britt stopped by a few times with her kid, checked up on both of us, and letting Austin spend time with the kid. I'm glad he'll have a better father figure in his life now. Austin hasn't been as open about sharing his friends with me now, which I can live with. Britt's the only one I'm still in good contact with. Austin was almost considering having me quit my job at our local gas station in case Dean showed up, but I put my foot down on that. I never work alone, and most of the co-workers I share shifts with are men, so I'll be just fine. I promised Austin I would talk to my boss about the situation and to make sure I'm not alone, especially in night shifts, and that if he does show up, I don't have to deal with Dean. For now, I think that's everything. Thanks for sticking with me on this really weird ride. Dean is a predator, a freaking groomer. You guys should call the cops. They need to have a word with him, and I'm glad he's gone. But you really need friends your own age. It's nice to hang out with your brother, but him and his friends are a lot older, at our legal age. All of my friends are my age, don't worry. I have maybe one that's only a year or two older than me, but the rest are around my age. As for the cops things, we probably should have. But my family was always the type to where if you can handle a situation yourself, why involve the cops? So, if it comes back around, I know the cops will definitely be called. Girl, You don't need to apologize for a thing. You are young and inexperienced, therefore a vulnerable prey. The only reason why your fellow, probably older, ladies were able to tag Dean as a predator immediately is because we know Dean's all too well from our experience being Brit. Maybe more than once or a few times. You only become acutely aware of what a predator looks like from experience as a prey. Or we have a baseline experience with healthy relationships, and so we know this situation is messed up. If we're not modeled how we should expect to be treated by loving and respectful fathers, we'll accept whatever scraps of affection are thrown at us. None of this is your fault. We are just glad you didn't have to learn the hard way like Brit did. Thank you. I felt so weirdly guilty about everything, like I did something wrong. I know this is the best outcome, but I still overthink and worry I'm in the wrong. I'm glad everything works out for you, but I'm still worried because Dean knows where you work. Please be safe, and maybe find another job if possible. Thank you, and I'd prefer not to, but if it comes to me feeling unsafe enough, I'll move jobs ASAP.